Sanimonani Dumelang, we are back for more Talking VS action. I can barely sit down with the quarterfinals of the VS Masters approaching.
Yo, guys, I'm so keen. We got the likes of Punishers, Kitsune, Nixx, Synthesis. Yo, too much fire in one sentence.
Guys, there's only one topic that can actually happen today. Who will rise as the new king of the hill in the VS Masters this season? Nixx, who do you think is going to be top dog?
For me, I think it's so difficult to look past Kitsune.
Okay.
I think the players that they've got, the fact that they've been together for almost 2.5 years now, coming up to this competition, they know each other inside and out. And for me, coming in, as I said, for me, they top one, top two. They're right up there. I think it's going to be difficult to beat them big time.
I tend to have a little bit of a different expectation coming into this one. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure I agree with that, to be honest with you. I'm looking at Punishers coming into this. They're a new organization. It's the first time they're competing at a Telkom VS Masters event, and they've got Slowy, who is a defending champion. He won with bravado last year at Comic-Con Africa. They've got the young up-and-comer Frozen, who seems to be doing incredibly well at the moment. Rusty as the IGL, he made it to the final last year with Nixx, where they lost to bravado, and now he's joined up with Slowy, the player who beat him last year, but that was his first LAN event. Now he's got some experience under his belt, so he knows what it's like to be on that stage, to make it as far as the grand final, where he fell short last time. So I think this time he's going to be able to go further.
HAzE, you are trusting a team that is coming together from different places.
It's true.
To dominate.
That's true, and that's the contrast to Kitsune, where, like Nick said, they've actually been together now for their third event in a row. So you are right, we should definitely have big expectations from them, because before they've kind of flown under the radar as like dark horses, not a huge amount of expectation. Now there's expectation for that team. You can't pitch up to that event and bomb out. If you're Kitsune, you've got pressure now to go all the way. If finals is bare minimum for both of these teams, it makes sense. I mean, they are the two big teams coming into the event.
What I'm saying is I match your Slowy and I raise you a Tristan. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just saying something
That's not much of a raise as far as I'm concerned.
Listen, I disagree. We can agree to disagree, but I'm saying Slash, as on the server, raw firepower. I'm not sure many people can match up to him, like player for player in the country, let alone just in terms of that matchup on its own. Slash is going to be, he's almost like a world beater. I think there's an argument taking the bravado guys outside of the conversation. Obviously, they're not competing at this year's VS Gaming Masters finals. Him and Triton, they're up there in terms of best players in the country. And I think Slash, at this event, he's the best player to look out for.
I hear your Slash, and I raise you with a fadey. Now we're going one of the goats of South African Counterstrike.
Is old now. We gotta,
Okay, hold on.
But what I'm saying, guys, Fady back in the day, he was the young up-and-comer, as you said, but he's races right.
The thing about you cut Fady, he bleeds Counter-Strike. It's as simple as that. Like, he knows the ins and the outs of the game. He's got it waxed. He's got the experience. He's got the firepower. He knows what it takes to win on the big stage. So I'm going to go Punishers, man.
Look,
you're going to be punished with that pick of Kitsune.
We have to wait and see for that one, I have to say.
Dive into the dark horses of the VS a tournament like that. Who do you guys think are the dark horses?
Sure, I think there's actually a couple options you could go for with this one. I'm inclined to go with Nixx for this. Okay, so I mean, they're an org who's made it to the finals in 2022 where they won it. 2023 they lost out to bravado, like I said. But they've got players who have now got some experience behind them. There's some history as well. Malkis and Bam played in a team together last year under Nibble, so they've got good familiarity with each other. You got Ruben, who's coming back into the mix as well. Very experienced LAN player on the AWP, quite stable. You've got the young up-and-comer HAzE. It's his first LAN event as well. Expecting some big things from him. I mean, I don't think Nixx could win the entire event, but I think that there's a good chance they could have a deep run.
Yeah, I think they could definitely have some upsets, but I mean, now I'm definitely going to be right in this one. My dark horse has to go to Exceed. I mean, they've just made their name known in terms of the world. They've just won the Fortnite World Championships not so long ago, but in terms of the CS, in terms of locally, I would go as far to say they could make the final. Heck, they could win the whole thing. They've got players on their roster who can do that. Shadow, yes, it is his first LAN. The question marks, his second
IGL
LAN, yes, his first is IGL. That's the big question mark. Does he have an identity crisis coming into the tournament as an IGL? How's he going to set his team up? But in terms of raw firepower, we've got the man on that team. You know, does he need much of an introduction? Energy Esports, Bravado, won it online. When I was the coach of that team, obviously DNMK. Got to throw my name in the mix.
Of course, naturally. I'd be disappointed if you didn't.
And then Dropshot last year for that royalty team. They actually went toe-to-toe for Nixx, if you can think way back when on that Inferno game. Dropshot was taking heads. He was drop-shotting other people, if I dare say so myself. So terms of raw firepower, I think Exceed match up. I would say, in terms of that Kitsune Punishers conversation, you can throw Exceed there into that third place playoff, or at least getting into that final easily.
I think Exceed will have more firepower than Nixx, but I think Nixx probably have better synergy within the team because of the relationships amongst the players. And then you've got Divo as well, who's supposed to be like a LAN prodigy in South African Counterstrike. Divo with the Deagle, that is what he's known for. On LAN, where you've got low ping, you know, buttery smooth server, that's where Divo's supposed to do his best work. So if he can pitch up on LAN, which is still, you know, one of those things that there's a bit of a question mark around that, then I think Nixx will have a good chance.
You say about pitching up on LAN, and the one player I didn't mention from Exceed is Flexi.
Yeah.
There we go.
For me, he is, people say, oh, I'm too biased towards Flex, but like this guy, when we talk about young talents in this country, I think he's still 22. And this guy has...
He isn't, but he does seem like it. He stopped aging at 22.
And he is just incredible. Like when we're talking about best anchor players this country has seen, the best anchor countries this country has seen, Flexi's in that conversation. He has to be mad. Don't shake your head.
No, don't shake. I'm just giving a little thing.
Guys,
maybe
that conversation.
No, you're right.
He's
He's
right. I
right.
haven't
He's
heard
right.
you guys talk about Kippy. Kippy hasn't been part of this conversation.
Zero chance.
Okay. Well, that's the captain's name.
Yeah.
So that's the funny, good play on words there. And he's a veteran. He's a legend. He is now, pushing 37, I think. He played CS 1.6, okay? And he was a top dog then. Then in CSGO, he competed there as well, won multiple LAN events, even went and competed overseas.
Yeah.
And then he went and he decided to choose the farm life, became a dad. And then the youngsters were like, zero chance. We need some guidance here. We need to find somebody who can help, you know, develop us and lead us. And so he's come back and he's going to be competing with Kippy. So he'll be the only South African player in the history of our esports to play in CS 1.6, CSGO, and CS2 as well.
Cooking.
Now, I want to talk about the MVPs of each team. Like, who are the MVPs?
I think one player we have to look out for, like I said, Punishers, maybe they won't win, but one player we have to look out for is Frozen. Like, he's one of these players where I think this is now his third LAN event, coming into the finals now, and he is incredibly strong. Mechanically, he's still young. He's got such a drive about him. The big question mark comes from him. He's changed from the AWP to the rifle. However, looking at the previous history and the qualifications coming up to this tournament, he has been lights out. He has been lighting up the server. He's been incredibly strong. So Frozen for me is near the top of that list.
And we did discuss in the previous episode how the change from CSGO to CS2 lends itself to a new skill set. And I think Frozen's skill set is very favorable for CS2. He's someone who loves to be active, run at his opponents. So I think Frozen's a good shout. If we're going to be looking at some of the potential candidates in the other teams, now I'll talk about Kitsune so we can just swap it around a little bit. You mentioned Slash already. He is an incredible rifler. He's so solid, and he's the guy who has to pitch up because now there's that level of expectation. We know what Slash is capable of. He's even going to be going overseas now in November, and he's going to go compete in an international event. I think it's is it in Morocco or
it's in Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia actually. So you know he's got an opportunity to contest against some of the best. So I think Slash is right up there. Let's dig a little bit deeper though. You know, if we look at some of the other candidates, you know,
I would say Flexi for me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say he's necessarily.
He's doing tricks on that thing now.
I would say Flexi has a history of showing up in big games.
When it matters the most. No, you're right, he does.
When we think back in the day, just before Bravado were about to head overseas, there's this whole big idea of Project Destiny, Bravado, the best team South Africa's ever seen. Energy Esports against Bravado, who's the top of that scoreboard? You wouldn't think it would be Flexi, but he lights that server up. So I think when we're talking about Exceed, whether they're going to win the tournament or at least make a big upset, Flexi's going to be one player we're looking out for. Maybe not necessarily towards the top of the scoreboard, but he's going to be consistently above average, and then he's going to have one game that he pops off.
I think if we keep the topic on Exceed here as well, the man is another person who's worth noting as well. He seems to not really get too overwhelmed by the pressure of a big game. Someone like the man plays a really important role in his team as well because he's often the guy who will be calling the shots in the team. He might not be the captain, but he's like, guys, I've got this read. I think this is what we need to do. And it's such a valuable player to have because it just helps give you direction, right? And he's happy to be on the front lines running at his opponents. I think the man, what about Adaro from Kippy? Because,
big question,
you know, I feel like Adaro is one of the players, he as a part of Goliath Gaming. He stopped competing when COVID hit, and he was one of the young stars in South African Counterstrike up until that point. When COVID hit, he kind of just shifted in a different direction in his life, and he's now come back. He's going to be playing with Kippy, and he used to be one of the heaviest hitters we had.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of his first teams was Online Kingdom, I believe.
Yeah.
And during those days, he was literally destroying everyone. And I think that's the big question mark about Kippy. Yes, they've got Zero Chance and Adara, who are the more experienced guys, but they can definitely show their weight on the server, you know? I think turning the table a little bit towards the lower ranked teams coming into the tournament, I think when you're looking at Synthesis and Monarch, I think JMT jumps out the page for me from the Synthesis perspective. He's a young up-and-coming AWPer.
Yeah.
He's got Botswana on his flag on Wikipedia, whether he lives there or lives in South Africa.
It's not a question.
He's
But maybe
owning that.
He's the import that's coming in.
International talent here on South African servers.
He's one player I think we got to look out for. If Synthesis want to make their way into that third, fourth playoff or
he'll have
semi-final,
to pop.
possibly even make the final, who knows what could happen. He has to be one of the players that has to
What
pop off.
about Adaptive? On Adaptive, who are you thinking?
Sure, I don't know if that team's going to be able to make a deep run at all. No, jokes aside. Listen, Nick is going to be competing with Adaptive.
Okay.
Everybody knows he is the captain
That's
of the
what
team.
I'm asking,
So that's a
yeah.
little bit of banter there. But looking at Adaptive, I mean, Raid is actually a player in South Africa who's also gone overseas in 2019 with Energy. He went to Berlin, played at the Starladder Minor, so he's got a lot of experience. He also, just when COVID hit, took a back step. But he was always an incredibly talented individual, very mechanically gifted, and a very good read on the game. I feel like his game sense was one of his core strengths as well. I don't know if he's like an MVP candidate though. If I had to look at your team Adaptive, I'd be more inclined to, I think, go with like maybe Leggy as someone who could like pop off and dominate the server.
Yeah, I
Are
think.
you allowed to say?
Listen, all I'm saying, look out for me.
That's what I wanted to
It might
hear.
be because of the wrong reason.
Yeah, I was going to say, look out for the cannon fodder there.
I think talking about Raid, like he was one of the players at one stage. He was the youngest ever player to get a Liquipedia profile. So for those who don't know, getting a Liquipedia profile is a relatively big deal.
I have one.
Both for talent, both for players, because you need to be a known figure in the scene.
known quantity.
So he was one of the youngest players ever. And when they went to that Berlin minor, he top fragged against some of the Asian teams that were competing there. So and that was when he was 17 or I think he was 16 at that time. So he showed that he's got the metal. Being a teammate of his, he could definitely compete in terms of go toe to toe with the top fraggers. But I think on my team, I'd say natural. He's one guy definitely to look out for.
Yeah.
Raw mechanical aim, he's up there with some of the best.
He feels like he's got very good first bullet accuracy.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, they always say, right, it's not about how you start, it's about how you finish. I want to know, who do you think is cooking in their opening matches?
Okay, so we have to break the opening matches down,
Please
right?
do.
So Punishers versus Kitsune is going to be the first game. Now, we both...
Okay.
That's a crazy thing, by the way, because with the way the seeding worked, you've now got the two favorites in the tournament that are going to be playing against each other in the quarterfinals, in the opening round. Winner goes through to semis, losers eliminated. So it's the two favorites in... It's essentially could be dubbed as the real grand final of the tournament. And I mean, with our predictions, with me saying Punishers and Nick saying Kitsune, I mean, there's not much of a conversation to be had there. We'll be figuring it out pretty early. So I'm backing Punishers, and I guess,
Scoreline prediction?
It has to be 2-1. I mean, it's two teams that are so closely contested. I think we can agree on that at least.
No one's getting swept here.
definitely.
And close maps as well, maybe
Honestly,
overtimes.
Take a coin out your pocket, flip it, pick a
it
side,
could
and
be,
that's the team that's going
It
to
shouldn't
win.
be a one-sided game at all. It should be a very closely
Definitely,
contested series.
And then in terms of the other teams coming up, I think Monarch are against Synthesis in the
Yes,
opening
that's the
round.
second game, yeah.
That's another one which I think is similar to the Punishers and Kitsune, not necessarily in terms of player for player or team per team perspective, but in terms of the quality of these two teams, definitely not poor quality. But in terms of how they're going to play against each other stylistically, the players in terms of their level, really, really close game, which honestly could go either way as well.
And they got a very lucky draw as well because of what happened with the seeding where we had the qualifier to determine these opening matches. With Punishers and Kitsune, the two best teams playing against each other, the teams like Synthesis and Monarch, who are, with all due respect, the lower rated teams coming into the competition, they now play against each other. Instead of having to play Monarch against Kitsune and Punishers against Synthesis, one of these two teams has a berth straight into the semi-finals without having to play one of the giants
In a way,
first.
they get a fair
So
start.
that is actually a really ideal opening matchup for them. Now, looking at that game on paper, Nick, I'm more inclined to go with Monarch. You know, players like NZK, players like Lumen, you mentioned them before as, you know, very exciting prospects. They seem to have a really good individual level. They also seem to have quite a brotherhood in that team as well, which I think could be the difference.
Yeah.
And I think also, when we're talking about LAN experience, Monarch have that, where
Yes,
Synthesis
with
don't.
Raz,
obviously
true.
competed last year on that, or he rather competed on that team with Chappie and them. I can't remember what they're called. Actually, it was Kitsune.
It was
It was Kitsune back in the day, so they've got that LAN experience on their side. So in terms of them going up against Synthesis, I would definitely say Monarch are favorites. Raw firepower-wise, I think similar. It goes down to that idea of flipping a coin, picking a side, and seeing which team comes out on top.
So Monarch isn't sweeping.
No, I think it'll be close. I think it'll be close.
There's even a 16-year-old on the side of Synthesis. His name's Bimo, and you know, we're talking about the high school league. He's transcended. He skipped HSCL. He went straight to Masters.
When you're that
He's
good,
like that guy. You know, there were always
skipping
those
steps.
kids that like they went to like university when they were 16 years old.
Yes, yes,
He's
yes,
one
yes.
of them. Okay, so he's just like taken a bit of a level up there. So I'm excited. It's his first LAN event. So a 16-year-old on the stage at Telkom VS Gaming Masters is an exciting prospect.
I think turning the tables to Exceed against Kippy in the opening round, I think is another close game. Like, I don't think there's any of these opening games where you're going to say it's going to be close. It's going to be a one-way affair.
I think it's the
only
most
thing-
one-sided game.
I do think so. However, when again we're talking about this idea of experience, yes, Exceed, they've got that in buckets and spades. However, what Kippy have got going for them is they have zero expectations whatsoever.
Yeah, no pressure.
If they go out 13-0, 13-0, who's going to look at that and be like, I'm surprised? Kippy have got no pressure on them whatsoever. So I think when it comes down to sitting on the server, playing against the opponent, which again Exceed, they've got high expectations. A couple of their Fortnite players literally just won the Fortnite World Cup. So when they're talking about expectations, Exceed are going to have all that pressure on top of them. Kippy, they've got nothing. So their confidence going into that is like, look guys, we're here to play, we're here to have fun, we can compete against the top dogs, we'll see what happens, and that's what could go right for them.
Now, let's talk Adaptive versus Nixx.
Yes.
What are the predictions there?
I'll talk on this one because I think that's an,
It's a bit unfair.
an objective view. So
Cut
we're
him
just gonna,
out.
Nixx are going to dominate.
Look at that.
No, listen. Genuinely speaking, Nixx have got the pieces where they've got probably more experience than Adaptive, but Adaptive definitely have more synergy within their team. Like the Adaptive guys have been playing together for a long time, not only in a competitive team, but you go into a Discord and you just see all those guys, they're all together, always hanging out. They've got very good relationships with one another. But when it comes down to raw mechanical firepower, I'd probably lean in towards Nixx a little bit more. I think it should be a close series. Nick, it's going to be your first LAN event as well as a player, which I'm sure you're super excited for. How do you fancy your chances against them, Nick? We can do a little interview.
I think I would be lying if I said I wasn't nervous. Like going into your first LAN, I think there's nothing that I personally believe if you feel nerves, it's good because it shows that you care. And as the boxers say, you've always got a plan until you got hit in the face. So I think from my perspective, it's preparation, confidence and preparation is going to come into it, and not underestimating Nixx. I do think we're the better team. But if we go into there being like, we're the better team, we're going to beat them, that's when we're going to get upset, you know? So on the Nixx side, there's Ruben there where, yes, he's not the star-studded AWP that's going to have flashy plays, but Ruben is going to be consistently good. And he's going to call a consistently good game alongside Malkeys. And you mentioned Divo earlier. He's definitely one person who's on the radar for me. If Divo's popping off, maybe I don't want to go to his bomb site. So I want to run to the other side of the map.
The other side of the map.
Yeah. So we never know what's going to happen. It could go either way. I'm obviously backing my boys and my team.
Naturally.
Genuinely, from a neutral perspective, who knows?
Yeah, I think it's another one of those very close, difficult to call games. Could go either way, and it's heartbreak for the team who loses because that's the run of your tournament over.
Funny enough, Heartbreak, he's retired.
There we go.
He's gone to the game we don't talk about here.
I think the one that's going to be most important is who actually takes it all the way to the top. Top four, who are you thinking? Let's start. HAzE, let's start with you.
Okay, well, I mean, I have to keep consistent throughout
Yes.
this. You know, it would be pretty cool if I could play both sides of
And
the
then,
coin
yeah.
and give the prediction punishes, and then here I say, well, Kitsune first, I think. But that's probably not too fair. So I'll stay consistent. I'll go, I expect Punishers to win the tournament. I'm going to go with Nixx as my second team to make it through to the grand final because they're on the opposite side of the bracket, so they could both make it the entire way through. Then I have to look at either Synthesis or Monarch because they're in the one semi-final and they'll have, I mean, the opening quarter, so one of them through to the semis, which means they'll be top four. I said Monarch earlier, so I'll stick with them. So I've gone Punishers and Nixx grand final, and then Monarch. And then, what are my other options to be then?
Kippy.
Exceed and Kippy. Has to be Exceed, right? Has to be Exceed over Kippy. So I'd say Punishers, Nixx grand final, Monarch, Exceed as my two semi-finalists.
That's not bad. That's not bad. I'll go Punishers.
Okay.
Nah,
We just had this conversation.
I don't say anything.
I'm definitely gonna say Kitsune are my favorites, then Exceed are a close second, and then I'm gonna play the humble card.
Oh, okay.
So then it's a win-win. You know, if
Yeah.
Nixx beat my team, I expected it. I'm humble. If we win, then it's just like you know, humble gentleman coming in here. So I would say Exceed, Kitsune, Nixx. And then I'd go Synthesis as
You
a
go
dark horse.
Synthesis?
Yeah, just because
That's fair
that
enough,
game is
yeah.
it's so tight. Like when you're talking about so tight, that game is genuinely either way. So I'd say Synthesis is going to clear out
What
the
would
top
be the
four.
biggest shock?
It
The
has to
biggest
be
way
Kippy.
no one would believe it.
It would be Kippy. Kippy would be the biggest shock, but it's a shock that people would love because it's zero
Yes,
tenacity,
that story.
zero chance, who's now come back into the competition, and Adaro as well, playing with some of the other guys who are cutting their teeth and kind of figuring out their way. You know, Fikwene, Lord has returned
And
as
Dennis,
well.
yeah. Sand, Dennis, yeah.
Yeah, and so, you know, you've got this team where there's no expectation behind them. They're a good group of guys as well, so a team you'd be happy to see winning as well. I'd say it'd have to be Kippy would probably be the most shocking result if they won the entire tournament. I mean, I'm very questionable, but zero chance. He's 37, he's a dad now. What's his reflexes? I reckon Simu could give him a run for his money.
Cook him, okay?
He's going to be the sniper, and I'm scared when he flicks that we might have to get like a wrist guard or something going.
We
We're going to need a medic.
First aid there at all
Exactly,
times.
yeah.
George, our top four. Let's show them how you make a real top four. First, winners adaptive, okay? Because we back our boys. We back. George, doesn't you see George's
I thought
face?
he was gonna go normal way like Punisher. Okay,
We'll
I'm
say
following.
adaptive first.
Okay, sharp.
Fine, we'll give Punisher second place.
sharp.
Okay?
Yeah.
Monarch, I think it's everybody's like third.
Okay.
Who are we going for fourth?
Tough one.
I think they will exceed our expectations.
I wanted to make that joke.
I'm cooking here. What do you guys think about our top four?
I love it.
I think you guys are cooking. Honestly, I think you're cooking. I don't think it's possible with the way the bracket is set up.
Actually, we were just choosing our faves.
No, that's
okay?
fair enough. Fair
We're just
enough. I mean,
choosing
that's
our faves.
important. At the end of the day, it's all about entertainment.
Exactly,
It's
yeah.
about winning the people's hearts.
Yeah.
So
You ready? You excited?
I'm so keen. I'm
Oh,
so keen.
man.
I'm so
Yeah.
keen.
I can't imagine what that thing is like when you're actually sitting there, the computer's in front of your face. We can't really see you, Ane.
Yeah, but you've got
and then
the
you
crowd
peer up
there,
there.
and then there's the stage with the commentators. That's where I'm going to be with Elusive and Kani as well,
Yeah.
breaking down the game. You know, you got Kamza on stage, getting the whole crowd excited as well.
man.
Then that doesn't even talk about everything going on behind the scenes to make it all work as well. And remember, this is the culmination of the entire year's journey
Yes.
up until this
Yes.
point. So it's not like it's just a few weeks. This has been building up the entire way through, and now we're right at that pinnacle.
And this is the bragging right, you know.
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
we can take out the prize pool, we can take out all that stuff. The fact is, most of the time, the team that wins this tournament is the best team of that year.
But see, at the end of the day, it's not about the size of the dog.
Yeah, it's about the fight
Of the
of
size
the dog
of the
in
dog.
the side. Yes, I still believe
You
you
nearly
bring
got
your
there,
boys
guys.
on
I'm
me.
a dog, bro.
That's what I
That's
need
the
to hear.
takeaway.
But honestly, it feels like everybody's kind of rooting for Punishers, but me, adaptive guys, they're going to adapt to the situation.
You're just trying to win
and
brownie
cook.
points.
Guys, let's just close it off there because we're going to talk and predict forever. But let's think of same time, same place next week. Catch us up at VS Gaming World. Otherwise, let's end it now. Otherwise, these guys are going to talk.
You can keep talking though, brother.
Yeah,
Even you,
I
okay?
mean, you're going to be disappointed with that one, I reckon. I don't know what to say.
Telkom. Possible begins here.